want to start by giving you a few facts and then lead into what it is that I'm here to talk to you about. We as women we are more than 50% of the electorate. We are more than 50% of the voting base. 58%, women hold 58% of the online purchases. Women make 80% of all the healthcare decisions. 64% of moms are in the workforce. 35% versus 27%. 35% of women, 27% of men hold bachelor's degrees or higher. 85% of all consumer purchases are made by women. $90 billion of consumer electronic purchases are made by women. And 80% of all car purchases are made by women. So women represent $2.4 trillion of our market. However, after I said all that, women still hold only 17% of the positions on Fortune 500 company CEOs, corporate board of directors. And even though we made major gains this year in the November 2012 elections, 20% of Congress, the best ever, is still in the 20% of the positions are in the Senate, 20% of the women are senators, 17% in the U.S. Congress. What does that say about us? Why are we still here? Let me tell you a little bit about me. You know, I grew up in a family of all boys. You know, I was always a student government person. I loved making a difference. And I always believed when I was younger that unless you had a title, nobody would answer the phone and you couldn't get anything done for anybody. So I was always a public servant. I was in local government, state government, federal government, because I needed to say I'm so-and-so and I need to help this person. So constituent services was always my key. I didn't really care about the title. I just used it to get stuff done for people. And I liked hearing about what people have said today. We have our issues. Women want to do something. Men want to be somebody. And if you think about that, we spend a lot of time with getting things done. Whether it's 12 hours a day fighting in Sarajevo or in other things, I just want you to think about some of the things that are stopping us from having a bigger percentage, or what I call our share, in government. You know, it's not about Democrats, it's not about a Republican, it's about government. It's about how can we have a bigger share, our seat at the table. If we're making all those decisions, if we have all this other power in the buying power, if we have all these other things, why aren't we having our share, our seat at the table? So when I became a state senator, I was elected in 1996 as a state senator in Illinois. I guess my claim to fame is I was elected the same year as Barack Obama to the state of Illinois legislature. So we were friends. He went door to door for me. His election was over in the primary, so he said, what can I do to help? So I sent him out walking door to door for me. Little did I know someday he was going to be the President of the United States. I'm still trying to be somebody. But we then, were friends. But I was a young female. As we've been talking, it's not as easy to be a female in this business, or actually any of the businesses, as we've been hearing. I was in my mid-30s. I became a senator. One of, I think there were only like 4 or 5 of us in the state Senate. So after I was elected, I beat a 19-year incumbent. So, I'm really hot stuff now. So I go to some receptions, and the lady at the reception desk said, which senator are you here to represent? I'm like, I am the senator. So pretty soon one thing led to another, and people would say, but what are you doing? What do you do with your kids? I said, they have a dad. There's other things, they're in school. But I would get so tired of hearing that. Finally, I came up with something good. I said, you know what? I get them up for breakfast. We, have breakfast together. I get them dressed. I put them in the freezer. When I get home at night, I thaw them out, and we have dinner together. I mean, come on. But it's stuff that we all have to deal with no matter what it is that we do. And I'm sure each and every one of you have the same issues. But what I think we have to realize is the word balance is a myth. Balance means 50-50. There is never going to be 50-50. You're not going to have a home life that balance is equal with your work life. That we have to realize that some days you're going to spend more time on your work life, and sometimes you're going to spend a little more on your home life. And you just have to flow with the punches. But what we do as women is we pour our heart and soul into whatever it is that we're working on at the time. And that we have our own terrorism right where we're at, whether it's in our neighborhoods, whether it's in our schools, whatever it is that we're working on. And you're very powerful women, and you just have to take that power. Women don't like power. We have our own barriers. The reason we're not in public office, first of all, power scares us. We don't like power. We think of power as a bad thing because we know what men have over the years done with power. We have to take power. Power is never going to be given to you. So think of power as a power to get something done, not power over somebody. And as long as we think about the fact that if you have power, we use that power to get something done, whatever you think is important in your life, we use that power to get that done. That is to get something done. It's a good thing. Power is a good thing. So we need to take power because it's not going to be given to us. Another barrier is confrontation. I think I just saw a few people start sweating out there because the word confrontation usually puts people into a cold sweat. It's like, oh, no confrontation. But the other thing is we give up our power and we avoid discord just because we don't want to cause problems. We walk away. We don't want to give up our power. We don't want to give up what we have going for us just to avoid confrontation. Because confrontation is communication in order to get something done with a good result. And confrontation can mean a good thing. So we've got barriers. We've got confrontation we're afraid of power, but there's another thing. We're afraid of risks. Now, if I was afraid of risks, I would never have even run for a state senate position because the person who I was running against, he had been there 19 years. He was the assistant majority leader in the Senate. He had never had an opponent for years. And people said, oh my God, you can't run against him. You can't win. I'm like, that's what he's been used to for all these years. We don't have a good education system. We don't have, people are at a loss for services. I'm going to take my chance. And if I lose, I didn't fail. We gave the people a choice. And I think that we have to do our best to instill that in other women, that we have to make sure that we're risk takers. Men don't have a bit of problem. They grow up every day of their life from the time they're younger being risk takers, loving competition, loving confrontation. But what do we do as we're growing up? We don't love all that stuff. We play differently. We deal with things. Our mother tells us don't get your shoes dirty when you go out and play. So all I'm here to say, and I wanted to share, is these are things we need to think about, to share, and to realize that if we ever want to get to that third or 40% or 50%, like we have all this buying power, we have this voting block, we've got to start changing the way we think about things because we owe it to ourselves. But sometimes we women, we are our own worst enemies. Men bond with men, men help men, and we all say we need more women in politics, but sometimes we don't put our money where our mouth is and we don't help women do what it is we think they should be doing. So what I say is we need to change our, they say stinking thinking, but that's just too much of a cliche for me. So I went on and worked hard for other women. I became the first woman in the state of Illinois ever to be majority leader because I refused to, what I kept saying is play ball with the big boys, which is the book I just wrote, because I said women should be able to have the same job as a man in politics. And I proved myself because early on they bought me a mug that said, boys, I'm taking charge here. Now, if you took the first letter of each one of those words, I'm sure that's what they really meant to say. But you don't take any of this stuff personally. And I think that's another thing that bothers us women, is we have very thin skins, we take everything personally, we want everybody to like us. Get over that real quick. Nobody's going to always like you. But that's okay, because what we're doing is for the right reasons. So I went on, became the first woman Senate Majority Leader, and stood up for women. When you talk about the ERA, being the only woman in leadership, Phyllis Schlafly comes to our committee, because Illinois was one of the states that did not pass or ratify the ERA. Well, Illinois was thinking that, well, we want to start the discussions at least and maybe pass the ERA. Well, first person to Illinois that was going to stop all that was Phyllis Schlafly. So, you know, she still looks the same as she did all those years ago. I don't know if she ever took that bun down or not, but, you know, and God bless her. She still had her job to do. But we need to start realizing that we have to stand up, because women, of no matter what party you come from, we have more alike than we have not. So in 2008, when everybody was asking if I would run for Congress, I put aside the title and all my years in the state Senate and said, it's not about me, it's not about titles, it's about where can we make the biggest difference. And I ran for Congress, and I won. And I did all the things that we needed to do, because as you know, when Barack won, Mr. President won, I have to watch that because he is a good friend. When our president won in 2008, we had a historic 2 years. But as I wrote in my book, we lost the message a little along the way, and we were having a wonderful conversation at lunch that there were some things that we probably could have done differently, but we got a lot done. Well, I lost in 2010 because there was this huge Tea Party movement, and it was very active in my district. But since then, we've been able to, you know, get more done, and I think that there's been a lot of different things that have happened. But what's important here is that we women start thinking about what we want to do together, and how we stand together, and how we work together, and how we think about ourselves. And that's been my message everywhere I go. And to think about our neighborhoods as we go forward. And that's what's been very important to me as I've done other things since I lost. And I feel that crime in the streets and education and housing and all those issues I see as something that is so important to the people, that if we women were to stick together and to constantly stand and fight for the people that need us so much, and if we were to stick together to do that, as we saw in this last election, it's a start, but we can't stop. We'll continue to do great things together. So as I go along and I travel the country over and I talk about getting together and galvanizing our strengths, which is just exactly what all of you have done so far today, and I look forward to future, you know, speeches the rest of the day, because I think you guys are amazing, absolutely amazing women. I think that as long as you realize, and when I lost my election, nobody could understand how I could be so gracious. I said, because so I lost, we did not fail. Women have to realize it's okay to lose. You don't fail. We need to take those risks. And don't ever be afraid to take a risk. And those are good things. So I just want to close there, because I would much rather listen to all of you and see what kind of questions you have. But as I talk and as I fight so hard for the people, I think it's so important that women learn that they need to bond together and fight and stand up together like men have always. Men bond with men work with men. But women, they're at the end of their long day, they're rushing home to their second shift with their families, and they're so busy they don't think about what they can do together with other women. And so with groups like this, with so many wonderful women such as yourselves and all these great networking opportunities, look around and see what it is that you could do together as you go from your day to day. And when you go to work, think about all the other women that you're with. And don't forget that women sometimes are each other's worst enemies. There's room for everybody at the top. You need to think about standing at the top of that ladder, helping every single one up. Not standing at that ladder, kicking everybody down, thinking there's only room for only you at the top. There's room for everybody at the top, and we need to help every woman up, because we can do that. Thank you.